Good morning and happy Wednesday. And surprise, surprise, I am not outside for a change. I thought I'd just sit down and chat about this one before I go out for a walk because it's one I've been thinking about for a while, well, from since the weekend. And I'm still not quite sure fully what to say about it because it's quite a big topic. So I want to talk about dogs and children. And this is kind of inspired from having my nephew to stay for a weekend. He came on Saturday, spent most of the day with us, and we camped out in the garden. And then he went home about lunchtime on Sunday. And he's just 3 years old, so still quite a little toddler. And it really made me think about kind of dogs and children and the dynamics of it. And this is literally what Zoe's going to do the whole time. He's just going to snog me. And I guess I've decided that the main question I want to say to you is think about what impact the child is having from the situation. So my big kind of priority that I kept kind of thinking about at the weekend was that Evan wasn't getting frightened by the dogs, because I think it's awful when children get frightened of dogs. And if you think about firstly how easily it can happen, like it literally just takes a over friendly dog that knocks the child to the floor or licks their face, and that's like, oh, teeth and a dog's mouth in their face can really just scare them. And some children will bounce back from that, but others will really take that and have that as a really frightening experience that they don't get over. And just consider about how often children would see dogs out and about. So if you go to the park to go for a nice walk or a picnic, or if you go to the beach, for example, or if you go just for a walk to the school and the kids go for a school run, there's dogs everywhere because we're such a dog loving country, which is fabulous. But that child that's frightened of dogs is going to have a really tough time avoiding dogs out and about. And we're not always, I was going to say, some people unfortunately aren't always as sensible with their dogs as well. So a dog off lead might run over to a child just to say hello. And if that child's frightened, then they're going to have a worse experience with that. So first and foremost, when you're coming across children with your dogs, my kind of go-to question is that child okay? And what learning experiences is this child having from these dogs, and what are they having a positive experience with the dogs? So that was my big thing with Evan this weekend. I didn't want him to be knocked over by the dogs or to be overwhelmed by them. And luckily he is getting much more confident with them. He doesn't see them all the time. So they're still quite a novelty to him, and he doesn't quite know what to do with them. And he's 3 years old, and Guinness is a typical size collie, so they're face to face at eye level when they're both stood on the floor, which is quite overwhelming for a child, understandably. Imagine standing up and having a dog at your eye level, that's quite, especially with all the teeth in the mouth. So that was my big thing. The other thing to think about is, what do you want your dogs to do around children? What behaviours do you think your dog should be showing around children, and sort of what interaction, or a lack of interaction maybe, would you want your dogs and children to have? And think about all ages really. So babies and dogs, really, I don't think they should be spending time together at all. There's just kind of no place for a baby to be interacting with a dog. Now, that doesn't mean a baby can't be around a dog and in the same room or on the floor together, but I don't think that dog should be kind of being handled and touched by the baby, and the dog definitely shouldn't be kind of approaching and going to the baby. I don't think. If you think about what's the best thing for your dog to do around children, then actually probably ignoring them is maybe the better thing. And then if they want to have a quick hello, a dog that is less interested in the child but is happy around them is going to be the safer dog around the child, I would say, than the dog that is all over excited by the child and constantly wanting to interact with the child. I would say that accidents don't happen from a dog just being all right, aggressive about a child. Aggression never really comes from nowhere. It always comes from something. And my biggest worry, actually, especially with my dogs, it wasn't that they were going to bite the child, is that they were going to knock him over and hurt him by knocking him over, or they were going to jump up at him and scratch him or something like that. Like, injuries can come easily from like little situations like that, rather than a dog doesn't need to bite a child to hurt a child. So, if you think about what do you want your dogs to do when there's a child there, if they just ignore them, actually, I feel like that's a really appropriate way to be. Dogs and children interacting together is really nice. Yes, it's lovely for the child to learn what to do with a dog and how to be around the dog, and the dog to kind of do things for the child, but less than is more in kind of my ideal. And I want you to really think about like what's safer for the child, what's better for the learning environment. Children shouldn't be kind of fixated on having to be with a dog as well, because I think children, it's important that they learn to leave the dog alone, especially when they're asleep or when they're eating. So actually, if you've got a child that like is a bit kind of meh about the dog, like seeing it, I'll give it a fuss, but then we'll leave it be, and equally the dog's doing the same, I actually think that's the better dog child kind of relationship than the ones that are kind of attached to each other. Also, I think I'm trying to think of how to word this. We give our dogs too much credit sometimes. They are amazing, but at the end of the day, they're dogs living in a human world, and we're so trusting of our dogs, which is lovely, and we're so kind of, I think we really think that they are perfect with children and they know what to do around children and we can just leave them be and it's completely safe, but actually that dog and that child cannot communicate with each other very well. So don't leave it up to your dog to kind of handle the situation and to make the right decisions, because actually that dog is probably gonna struggle to deal with lots of different situations, and we need to step in as the parent or the guardian or whoever you are to the child, or then if you're nothing to do with a child, if you're the dog owner, then you owe it to that dog to step in and kind of not leave the dog to cope with the situation. So like if you have got a child that's patting the dog a lot and stroking the dog and actually the dog's looking a bit uncomfortable, don't think that, oh, that's okay, I'll just leave it because the dog's fine, he'll be okay, or like don't expect the dog to move away. Actually maybe say to a child, oh, I think he's had enough now, let's leave him be, or like call the dog to you, so the dog, then you kind of giving that dog permission to kind of come and escape. If it's a situation where you don't know the child and you've just got this child that's kind of fussing your dog out and about on a walk, and you don't feel confident to say to the child about what to do, then you can kind of take control of your dog's actions anyway and try and bring your dog out of the way. I think that's everything I'll say about this. It's one of those big topics that I could just go on and on about, and there's no like as always, there's not a lot of right and wrong answers. It's all about thinking about it and common sense, and kind of some people will listen to my ideals and think, oh no, that's ridiculous, you don't need to be that kind of arm's length with dogs and children. But there are so many unfortunate dog children accidents, and they all come from people that say, oh, we never thought the dog would do something like that, and every dog attack always seems to come out of the blue. And those of us that know dogs a bit more know that there is an escalation before this happens, but it might be quite a subtle one, and there will always be a reason for a dog bite, I believe. So those lovely family dogs that the parents completely trusted their children with, and the owners completely never expected anything to happen with, they're the ones that bite the children. And unfortunately it's just come from maybe the dog not having an escape, or the child being too overwhelming with the dog. You just don't know, because we never actually see what goes on. But the impact on something like that happening is so huge and devastating that I really think we could just be a bit more safe and a bit more careful. And I am of the approach of it's good to be a bit overcautious, because if in the long run what you're actually preventing is huge. Like, that dog that bites that child is always most likely going to be put to sleep, and that child is probably going to be scarred for life physically, potentially, depending on what happens, and often it's face bites, which is really sad. But also mentally, again, we're coming back to that child now being frightened of dogs. And we love dogs. Hopefully, you listening to me love dogs. So, can you imagine someone else not having the love and joy of dogs that we have? Like, imagine someone being completely terrified of these wonderful animals that we share our lives with. And we can all do our bit to try and prevent people from being frightened of dogs. Okay, right. I think I'll leave it there. I hope that is all kind of makes sense and not too garbled. And I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts on this one, really, because I think it is such a big topic. There's, like I said, there's not a lot of right or wrong in this, but the one things I will say is, like, children really need to be taught not to disturb a dog when they're sleeping and when they're eating. I really think that is a most definite kind of strict rule that should be applied with all children. And asking permission of the owners before they go and greet a dog as well, I think is so important. And owners, don't be afraid to say no. If you, like Guinness, my big old collie, is really sweet and very gentle with kids, but actually he's got a bit of arthritis, and he gets sore back legs, and he doesn't like to be really overwhelmed. So I don't feel I owe it to Guinness to actually say, oh no, I'd rather you didn't fuss him, actually, because, and like with puppies as well, like if I'm out with a young puppy that's got sharp claws and teeth and they're going to nibble at a child, and again, that's probably going to worry the child or harm the child when the puppy's literally just being a puppy. If, a little kid comes over to me with a puppy and says, can I say hello? I'll say, oh, actually, it's probably best you don't, because he's got really sharp claws. And he's in training, so we're just going to leave him be for now. That's your decision. That's a given. I might do a whole other video about the whole, like, people asking permission and stuff. But yeah, children need to be encouraged to ask permission first. Hello, have I talked for too long? All right, I'm going now to walk this crazy one. Have a lovely day and have a nice week. Oh, before I forget, there won't be a video next week because I'm going on holiday. So I'll be back the week after, hopefully, with a Wednesday video. All right, bye. Look at this dog. Isn't he ridiculous? So cuddly.